Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ACNT Response to COVID-19 podcast update. This particular update is regarding the COCA Call that the CDC organized on Sunday, December 13th, 2020, to provide an update regarding the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine that has just received an emergency use authorization and that will start being administered this week. I'd like to thank our webinar series partner who help us provide information about our webinars and spread the news. Also want to remind you to check out our website, www.acnt.net/COVID-19 web, where you can find our webinar series, recordings, upcoming programs. You can also check out our FAQ page as well as our resources page. My name is Ziad Kazzi. I'm an associate professor, Department of Emergency Medicine at Emory University. I'm the assistant medical director of the Georgia Poison Center, a board member of the ACNT, and the president of the Middle East and North Africa Clinical Toxicology Association, MINATOX. Essentially, the impetus for the podcast yesterday was to provide useful information to clinicians who are likely to start administering the Pfizer BionTech COVID-19 vaccine under the emergency use authorization that was just issued by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. This RNA vaccine is currently recommended for persons 16 years of age and older. It is a 30 microgram dose given in twice, 21 days apart. So this is a 2-dose vaccine, 21 days apart, that allows a grace period of 4 days, essentially days 17 to 21 after the initial dose, you should get the second dose. So this is an important point, I thought, from the call that I wanted to share with you. So you have 17 to 21 days period where you can give the second dose after you give the initial dose. It is an intramuscular injection in the deltoid muscle. The speakers from CDC explained a little bit more about how this vaccine works and emphasized that this is an RNA vaccine. Basically, this is not a DNA vaccine and will not enter the nucleus of your cells and will not interfere with your own genetic DNA. As an RNA vaccine, this RNA is actually administered intramuscularly, enveloped in a lipid coat. And this lipid coat is going to help this RNA enter the cell and stay in your cytoplasm. It doesn't enter your nucleus. In the cytoplasm, it's going to be subjected to your protein synthesis mechanisms in the cytoplasm to produce the spike protein. The spike protein is actually what this RNA codes for, and the spike protein is important for the coronavirus. So basically, this coronavirus protein is going to be manufactured in your own cell using the RNA. That is going to be recognized by your immune response, and this is how you actually develop an immune response to this spike protein, which protects you from becoming infected by the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Now, the speakers discussed several important points that I want to summarize for you today. This is particularly important because the COCA Call yesterday was not recorded and the slides were not available. So I want to go ahead and just summarize these to you right now. But I also want to remind you that today at 1 p.m. Eastern, there is a COCA Call on vaccine safety that I encourage you to attend. I will be sending this podcast right away and sharing it on social media. That way you can maybe catch the call today, which will be recorded. And then for that call today, the slides will be available. So some of the points that they discussed, for example, pregnant women and breastfeeding women. The question came up what to do with women who are breastfeeding or pregnant. And essentially, the speaker said that if you are supposed to get the vaccine because of your risk category, for example, let's say you're a healthcare provider and you're pregnant, then you need to consider that COVID infection does have risks on the pregnancy and the baby. And therefore, it is a risk-benefit situation here. Although this vaccine is currently being studied in pregnant women, but we don't have the results of these studies yet. So at the time being, at the present time, it is recommended to have a discussion with your healthcare provider and to decide, considering the fact that COVID infection is definitely known to cause a higher risk of adverse birth outcomes and pregnancy outcomes. And therefore, in a way, these speakers encourage pregnant and breastfeeding women to consider taking the vaccine if they are in a category of that is supposed to receive the vaccine, such as healthcare provider. This also applied to immunosuppressed individuals. That came up as well. People with HIV, people that are immunosuppressed due to other type of therapies, and also people with autoimmune disorders. So these two categories should also not refrain from taking the vaccine because of their conditions. There were some patients with HIV, with stable HIV infections that received the vaccine in trials. And certainly at this point, it is recommended that these individuals receive the vaccine if they happen to be in a category of priority for vaccine, for the receipt of the vaccine currently. The other important point that I thought was discussed was what do you do with people with current or previous COVID-19 infections? So if you have a current COVID-19 infection, the speakers recommended waiting for the infection to subside. So they did not recommend giving the vaccine while you're infected. And those who've had previous COVID-19 infection, they also said they should get the vaccine. So if you've been infected with COVID-19, it doesn't mean you're not supposed to get the vaccine, but certainly not in the acute infection. So you have to wait. And they reassured, saying that reinfections are usually rare, and if they occur, they do not occur in the first 90 days since your infection. So you do have some time before you get the vaccine. But if you've had the COVID infection, you should get vaccinated, not in the acute phase of your infection. And you do have about 90 days where you are not going to be reinfected. Therefore, you can wait and get the vaccine to make sure you've already healed from your acute infection. This issue then led to the discussion about people that have received convalescent plasma or monoclonal antibody treatments for COVID-19. Those patients as well should wait because the convalescent plasma is going to potentially interfere with the vaccine and potentially the monoclonal antibody treatments as well. So they recommended discussing that with your healthcare provider and waiting before you actually get the vaccine. Wait a little bit for the convalescent plasma or these monoclonal antibody treatments to no longer be present in your body. Another interesting point was regarding lab testing after you receive the vaccine. Lab testing specifically for the RT-PCR. Apologize for the typo here in the slide. The RT-PCR would not be affected by the vaccine. So if you've had a vaccine, your RT-PCR test will not be affected. However, for the serology, since there are two types of serology tests out there, the one that looks for antibodies to the spike protein will be affected. So that one would not be appropriate. However, the other type of serology test will be acceptable because it does not look at the spike protein antibody. Also, the speakers recommended against mixing vaccines. So if you start by taking the Pfizer vaccine, you should not take the Moderna vaccine, for example, as a second dose. So once you're on the Pfizer vaccine, you should complete your regimen with the Pfizer vaccine, and same for Moderna. And after you get the vaccine, you should not assume that you're immediately protected. It does take some time to achieve protection, maybe 1 to 2 weeks. I think they said 10 days. So they recommended continuing practicing social distancing and wearing masks after you get the vaccine. And of course, remember the vaccine is highly effective, but not 100%. So you should always consider social distancing and wearing masks and hand hygiene as important tools, and not stop doing that just because you've received the vaccine or the full course of vaccine. So also remember that you do need those 2 doses to reach that maximal efficacy that's been shown in the studies. They also discussed what happens if you miss the 17 to 21 days window. They recommended at that point that you actually go ahead and take that dose as soon as possible, and that you don't need to restart all over again. The next important part of this presentation discussed reactogenicity and patient instructions. Now, of course, we know that these vaccines are likely to be very safe. However, they reported that they can cause some adverse effects that are called reactogenicity, such as local pain, fever, systemic effects like fever, malaise, body aches. So those adverse effects can be treated with antipyretics and analgesics if they occur, but they recommended against giving these medications as a preventive measure because we don't know what they do potentially to an immune response. They did recommend that providers give the patient an information sheet as well as a shot record, update their shots record. Those are two important pieces that we have to do with our patients, and encourage our patients to enroll in a text message-based system to report adverse effects. I believe they will give more information about that on the call this afternoon. They also recommended that you remember using the Vaccine Adverse Effect Reporting System, or VAERS, to report adverse effects. And they emphasized that no formal written informed consent is necessary because they really want to facilitate the administration of the vaccine. So no informed consent is necessary unless you, the provider, decide to do one. The other big important question discussed was the allergy question. As we have all seen in the news, there were 2 patients that developed anaphylactic reactions from the Pfizer vaccine in the UK. These 2 individuals apparently had previous history of anaphylaxis and actually even carried on them the EpiPen. So they wanted to discuss this topic on the COCA call. And they basically said that patients with anaphylaxis or severe allergy to vaccines or injectable meds, that's really important, vaccines or injectable meds, this is where the precaution applies. And they recommended monitoring for 30 minutes, discussing with the patient the risks. It didn't seem to me that they would recommend not giving the vaccine. It seemed to me that they were leaning towards precautions, monitoring, and discussion with the patient. And they also wanted to emphasize that these were patients with anaphylaxis or severe allergic reactions. Now, you and I, as healthcare providers, we realize that it's sometimes difficult to determine that. What is a severe allergic reaction when you are asking the patient about a previous reaction to a medicine? But certainly, I will be asking my patients if they've had allergy to vaccine. Now that's something that they could potentially remember. Regarding the injectable meds and whether it's severe allergy or anaphylaxis, that's going to be a little bit tricky. But sounds like here we can discuss with the patient and monitor for 30 minutes and be ready to treat anaphylactic reactions if they do occur. They wanted also to emphasize, which I thought was very useful, that this is not allergy to like dander or shellfish. So it's really strictly the vaccines, previous vaccines, as well as the injectable meds. Now, this vaccine, the Pfizer vaccine, just has the RNA and these lipid nanoparticles, which are, I think they said they had 4 of them. And it seemed to me that the speaker was pointing out that polyethylene glycol, which was one of those 4 lipids used to code the RNA vaccine, was the potential culprit here. And because this polyethylene glycol is potentially used in some injectable meds, this is why they said injectable meds. They added injectable meds to the precautionary statement. So again, we will know more as we start giving the vaccine this week. We will get more data, and I'm sure this is going to be updated as we get more information in the next 2 to 4 weeks. And that was the gist of the webinar. I believe I covered most of it, and apologize if I missed any part of it. If you feel like I've misinterpreted any of the discussions, please let me know. I'll provide my email at the end. In the meantime, please remember to join the Vaccine Safety COCA Call today at 1 p.m. You can go to the CDC COCA website and you can find it. COCA is COCA. And I'm sorry, I don't have the link here for that webinar. But I do want to also invite you to our ACMT webinar series this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll discuss a very important topic of pregnancy during COVID. And we have Dr. Denise Jameson, who's the chair of the Department of Gynecology and Obstetrics at Emory University, and is an expert in this area. And she will share a lot of important information regarding the disease, as well as the vaccine in pregnant women. So please join us, and you can learn more about this on our website that I shared at the beginning. Also, remember to check out our prospectus that includes links to all our previous webinars. And if you have any questions, please contact me at zkazzi@emory.edu. You can also tweet to me at Ziad Kazzi and follow us at Ziad Kazzi and at ACMT Net Talks. Again, thank you for your attention.